Hi team, this is Bert here, and today I'm going to share with you the story of Our Iceberg is Melting, an outstanding fable written by John Kotter, Harvard professor, on how to manage change and changing and succeeding under any conditions. So let's look at that. So once upon a time, isn't that how all stories start? There were some emperor penguins in Antarctica, and 268 to be exact. And they lived on this iceberg for years. It was heaven, it was home. And then there was Fred. Let's talk about him. Fred was a great husband, a father, and an observer. And what did he notice? He noticed that the iceberg was melting. Fred wanted to warn his fellow penguins, but he remembered the last time someone, Harold, tried to warn the penguins about the melting iceberg. He was not treated well, and so he tried to do something different. He decided to meet with Alice, one of the 10 penguin bosses. And at first, Alice wondered if Fred was having some sort of personal crisis. What was he doing? But she listened, and she asked Fred to take her to the most problematic place on the iceberg. And Fred and Alice swam around the iceberg, and Fred pointed at the fissures, the canals, the caves that weren't there before. And the caves were filled with water. The water was fine for summer, but when winter comes, the water freezes, expands, and breaks apart the surrounding iceberg. And it's not really good for anyone living on an iceberg if your home is going to explode. So what happens next? So Alice agreed to tell the other penguins of the leadership council. Most of them were wondering if she was having a personal crisis now. But really they were just busy doing other stuff. And finally they agreed to meet with and listen to Fred. Fred decided to make a model of the iceberg in order to illustrate the problem. As Fred explained, the imminent disaster to the council members, all but one approached the model and examined it closely. They were scared silent, except for the penguin boss, that was his name, who insisted that the melting was nothing new and nothing to be worried about. Nono continued to discredit Fred and his theory, until Alice pointedly said, "Imagine parents who lost their children. Imagine them coming to us and asking, how would this have happened? What were you doing? Why didn't you foresee this crisis?" This got the group's attention. One of the council members suggested that they form a committee. Another member agreed, but added, "We need to keep this a secret." Alice agreed that those were all fine and dandy procedures for normal problems, but this was not a normal problem. Alice wanted to call a general assembly of the entire penguin colony and let everybody know. Panic ensued among the council members. What? Tell everybody? Fred started to feel worried, but then he thought of another way to convince the penguins of the impending doom. He found a glass bottle. He filled it with water and let it sit overnight. The next morning, it had exploded. Finally, the council decided to hold an assembly for the entire penguin colony. They had got their attention. Everybody got to see the ice model and the broken bottle. And they also got to hear the first-hand reports of the warning signs and ask questions. They were thoroughly concerned. Fred had accomplished step 1 of successful change, and that was reduce complacency and increase urgency. First step, reduce complacency and increase urgency. Louis, the head penguin, decided to form a team to solve the problem. It consisted of Mike, the head penguin, wise, experienced, patient; Alice, practical, aggressive, a doer, smart; Buddy, well trusted, well liked. Fred, younger, curious, creative. And me, the logical, well read, curious, and not very so. The team went out to lunch, hunting for squid, and chatted about life and love and hopes and dreams. They had succeeded in step 2 of successful change. And what was that? Pull together a guiding team for the needed change. You need a guiding team if change is going to happen. The team brainstormed possible solutions. The most scary and the most realistic was to change the current way of life. They studied other successful models. They liked the life of the seagull, a nomad. They reached step 3 of successful change. Step 3 is create a vision of a new future. Lois, the head penguin, called the General Assembly of all penguins. They spoke about the life of seagulls. It was a powerful speech, but the crowd was not sold. Some were still skeptical, others were confused, others were downright against this absurdity. Alice decided that they needed to be constantly reminding their fellow penguins of their impending doom and their hope for a new future. And so they did. This is step 4 of successful change. Communicate the new vision. This communication campaign worked. Enthusiasm for the new future grew slowly. Many penguins volunteered to be scouts to look out for a new iceberg to call home. But they also became discouraged by all the naysayers and other obstacles, and by the fact that the scout penguins would need much more fish than normal to survive their venture. Penguins just don't fish, The penguin leaders got creative. They met with the leaders and instilled in them the need for a new home, the need for heroes to find a new home. The students created an idea of a tribute to our Heroes' Day, and now nearly everyone felt involved. This was step 5 of successful change. Make everyone feel empowered. The Penguin Scout left for their mission. Meanwhile, back home in the Iceberg, penguins were planning a tribute to our Heroes' Day. There would be a raffle, performances, music. The parents were skeptical but caved into the enthusiasm and pressure of their youngsters. Heroes' Day was scheduled for the same day that the scouts were to return from their adventure. All the scouts returned, everyone celebrated, except of course, No. This was step 6 of successful change. Create a short-term win. Next one, enthusiasm and hope soared. More penguins volunteered to support the cause. Soon a new iceberg to call home was found, and then the move began. Sure, there were problems along the way, and over the first few months of the new life, the following year, the penguins found an even better iceberg to move to, and so they did. This was step 7 of successful change. Don't let up. Create a sense of urgency was the first step. Second step, pull together a guiding team. Third step, develop the change vision. Step 4, communicate for buy-in. Step 5, empower others to act. Step 6, produce short-term wins. Step 7, don't let up. And step 8, this is the final step, create a new culture. Without a new culture, it won't be sustained. So these are the 8 steps in Kotter's model of managing change. So even as you've listened to this, I'd like you to reflect on 2 questions for yourself. Which penguins did you relate to the most? And did certain penguins remind you of certain people in your organization and your team, or perhaps other people in your life? Just something to think about as you manage change in your team and your organization. This is Bert signing off, and I will be soon with you.